Good morning and welcome to Psych Talk, where we talk psychology and then some. I am your host, Sean Hupel, and today we're going to talk about something that I'm seeing around this country. Something that is causing all the reactions you're seeing on TV. Excuse me, crickety chair. Depression is a big, big deal, but it comes out in so many different ways, and I really want to discuss this right now because there are a lot of people that are out there hurting at the moment. And we don't need to be hurting. We don't need to be going through all this. We don't need to be at each other's throats. And it's all expressive of depression. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you want to see it, no matter your political perspective, your religious expectations, all of that, like the writing is on the wall. Depression is absolutely adamant in this country and in this culture, and there's a good reason why. So let's talk about it. All right, so what is depression? Depression is basically a dissatisfaction with the present state of events or present experience. Okay, because experience, it's personal. You can share it with somebody else, but your part in that experience is personal. And our perceptions of those experiences are what shape whether or not that experience was a positive one or a negative one. So let's look at it from an outside perspective, just before we get into the nitty-gritties and all that. Because basically depression is an expectation that was either, I can't even say met or denied, because it applies to both. But I'm trying to simplify it, and that's the challenge. And sadly, that's the mark of a true master, and I am not one on this. I have overcome it, though, multiple times and from multiple different directions. But then again, who hasn't? I mean, Married with Children was a blockbuster hit of a show, right? I mean, everybody loved it. And it celebrated low-class families acting very poorly. We celebrated it. But then I'm looking online and, I play Fortnite. Okay, here, I got it. I got the simple explanation. All right, follow me. I play Fortnite with my best friend and his kids. I'm getting to the point where a lot of times I won't play with the kids. Why? Because they got some toxic behavior. Like, seriously toxic. And that toxic behavior, for example, you can emote over where a player died, right? Because it's a first-person shooter game, and it can actually be really fun. Seriously, I grew up with first-person shooters, and I am not a psychopath. Okay, you can play video games and be okay. And sometimes it's a great way to vent. It's also a great way to bond. And I go on there with my buddy Pep, and yeah, we play some Fortnite. We're getting better and better. We're growing together, as brothers, communicating, but also as a team. You know what I mean? Like bang bang. All right, I got the Scannums, you got the home wrecker. The home wrecker is this little device that, I don't know, just came into the game, and it's just, you literally fire it at walls and it destroys them. So I called it the home wrecker. And we have a blast. But when we play with the kids, there's one of them that he'll do things that will directly sabotage efforts and laugh about it. And what that symbolizes to me, as somebody who understands depression and has been in those shoes, the reason it's called griefing, by the way. Like, you're griefing a player, you're causing challenge for a video game player, and it's part of the video game community. I've been a part of it for all of my life. And I still remember the first runs of Counter-Strike, which was just like Fortnite, but without being able to build walls, and less cartoony. But how a person plays tells you a lot about how they're feeling. Seriously. When my buddy's missing shots or whatnot, or when I'm missing obvious shots, we know to ask. But these kids aren't being taught that, and then they're griefing other players. They are causing challenge for other players that's unnecessary, but they find the discomfort funny, which is physically projected Schadenfreude. You see the disadvantage of somebody else in that present situation, and all of a sudden, you are feeling better about yourself, and you get a small boost of dopamine. It's either yeah, it's dopamine, but I think there's a play with norepinephrine, but the cortisol release is still there. And I know I just went super technical. Bear with me. All right, so and it wasn't super technical. I know. I'm goofing around. But he likes to grief other players, and I get that. School ain't great. He's not the tallest, and we just got through. Like these are his golden elementary years, where a lot of us, have some pretty fond memories and growth memories, right? And social interactions that are necessary. I mean, this is the playground days still, and he's moving on to the junior high and high school days soon. Him and his brother and his sisters. And with where, I mean, they see how the grown-ups are acting and how the grown-ups are reacting. They're seeing the grown-ups depressed because, I mean, this is hard times for all of us. This is hard times. And they're seeing all of this and they're expressing it in their video gameplay, but they're learning from it. They're learning from our reactions. And some of our reactions are not the greatest. Not by a long shot. The lack of compassion in our country is, I have to say it, surprising to me. Very surprising. It's amazing how much value we put into convenience over another human life. That's privilege. Now, what happens when you reach the glass ceiling of privilege? This is a previous episode of Psych Talk, so if you missed the previous episodes, like, this is cumulative. Like, I'm hitting on things at a high level, but I'm also building on things too, and referencing back. So, Autistic Commando on YouTube, same thing on TikTok, but I don't care about TikTok. That's for me communicating to other autists like me. But YouTube-wise, Autistic Commando, come check it out if you missed any of the previous episodes. Also check with CCTV, because they are now airing those episodes, and if you're tuning into 98.3 this Saturday, hi. And that's in Salem, Oregon. So yeah, trying to hit this from multiple fronts, because depression is a very, very real thing. And the same way the kids can project their depression through griefing other players, or through, oh, here's a good one. And I'm going to use Fortnite too, because there are some parents listening to this that play Fortnite to bond with their kids, and I totally get it. I'm not against that in any way, shape, or form. Those same parents are the ones that say, okay, get off here. We play together now. Now go outside and play. Scrape a knee. Which kids need to learn how to scrape a knee and walk it off, in my opinion. But then again, I was the product of free-range parenting. And I survived. Yay! Anywho, so you've got these children doing the same things that we used to do when I was a kid, even when I had to play games, by myself before there was, internet gameplay and Counter-Strike and all that. Is I have these things called nadas in Fortnite, or nadas. Like, my buddy, he knows to say, dude, I've got your stuff over here, and then I'll always run over saying, no, nadas. Those are grenades. And I like to carry those because I'm pretty decent when it comes to the range game. And so what I'll do if I'm in a bad mood, and this is when he could definitely tell that I'm in a bad mood, is I'll carry 12 of them, and I will throw like 10. Just to make sure I get the people. And there's a few leftovers afterwards. It's like, okay, yeah, those were excess, but we got them. Yay, go team. And that's when he'll usually follow up with, dude, you alright? You good? And we have an understanding to where, okay, if I want to talk, I'll talk. And if not, no pressure. No pressure is another one, but we're going to get to that in a second. That does tie into depression. Okay? But he can tell through my actions and through my griefing other people or other NPCs, because I won't grief a person unless, it's competitive like that. Your goal is to to stop that player from stopping you. Okay, that's competitive online gameplay, and it's a great way to vent, in my opinion. Like, it's also like anything that's great to vent or that makes you feel good can be overdone. And kids being stuck at home all day with internet, fiber, and all that good stuff, they've been falling into the trap that my generation had to fight our way out of, and that's video game addiction or video game dependence, and that's emotional dependence, right? So we all project how we feel. We're showing it to our kids, and unfortunately, like, thankfully, some people have been staying home for a year and have had a year to really teach their kids. Hopefully the right lessons. Hopefully. But in that regard, we've had the chance to better get to know each other from an online standpoint, from a safe distance standpoint. When I say safe distance, I'm talking about trolls online. People are really brave online. And in groups, they're really brave in person. That's why they do... that's why people look around for support sometimes. When they know they're doing bad behavior, but they want to see if they can get away with it. That is privilege. Not having to get vaccinated, not having to wear a mask, that is privilege. But unfortunately, in all this depression, we're becoming so stuck into ourselves, so compartmentalized within ourselves. We're thinking about ourselves because that's kind of who a lot of us have been stuck with for a while. That's a rough one. That's genuinely a rough one. I'm going to sip a little bit of coffee before I carry this one on. Allergies, man. I bought literally every type of honey out here in Lebanon, Oregon, and that farmer's method isn't working out here. Like, the allergies are just keeping up. But then we got smoke and all of that. We're not going to talk about global warming and all the political stuff and just the job situation, the economy situation, the foreign wars situation, the Afghanistan situation, all these other situations. And we got COVID, man. How many of you are exhausted and emotionally worn out? That might be a good definition for depression. We've been not only stuck inside without all of the releases that we used to have. For me, I'm a video gamer and I've got a total gym with free weights. I mean, I will work until muscle failure if I have to. But yeah, I mean, that's what the total gym's for. Like, it's difficult to hurt yourself on one of those. At the same time, you could just let loose and really tone the heck out of yourself. And then video games, I mean, please don't hold this against me. This is an inside joke, and we say it completely jokingly. But I will call up my friend, and I'll be like, dude, you want to go kill some small children? Bet. Like, that's who we're playing in Fortnite. Like, we're not really playing adults. Like, plenty of adults play Fortnite, but it's predominantly small children when he gets off school, or gets off work. So, I mean, but, and more often than not, they wipe the floor with us. But we're getting better. We're getting better. Seriously. And that's the value of being able to communicate with each other, is you can do team building exercises like playing Fortnite. I bet you didn't think that was going to tie together, did you? I bet you thought that was off the cuff. Actually, it was off the cuff. Off the dome. Straight off the kilter half the time. But digressing, we have a lot of reasons to be depressed as a country. we have an economic depression. Okay. I mean, we're going to recover. We're actually going to be really fine afterwards. Like, we're going to be okay. I mean, we might have to do a few adjustments to the tax system, but I mean, that's neither here nor there, nor is that my prerogative at the moment. My prerogative is to explain to other people what it's like to go through depression and how to climb out of it. And then give you some first-hand experience on the same. Few pitfalls to avoid. Because America as a country is depressed. So let's look at another external expression, right? I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to get a vaccine. I know we touched on that a little bit earlier, right? Well, some of these people we know. And we know they're not stupid. Like we know that they understand science, and that's why when people get sick who haven't gotten the vaccine, they still go to the hospital because they trust medical professionals. They know. And when you have a glass ceiling, you want to hold on to every privilege you can. A lot of these people wonder, as kids, as young adults, and so on, as current adults, how am I going to climb higher or climb out of this? The economic disparities in America are significant, and they are attributing to it. I mean, that's why that's why you see all these different fast food chains doing what everybody knew that they could. Nobody's going back to work because nobody wants to work a dead-end job to just barely pay rent. And true story, that's what a lot of people are doing. A lot of people were working 2 jobs. I worked 2 jobs most of my not most of my adult life now. But there was a time when I could say that. And that was in my 20s. But working 2 jobs is kind of a need, isn't it? And people are getting evicted even though the COVID is raging. And now we don't just have alpha, we have delta, we have gamma. Gamma is twice as lethal, and delta spreads 2 to 3 times as easily. And people still don't want to get vaccines from, as recommended by literally world experts in infectious disease. Why not? Like, we know these people. And the best approximation I can give from studying this macro environment, which is why those of you watching online on YouTube will see that I look a little bit different. It's because I've been sitting back and watching and listening and observing. And the best I got is that people want to hold on to their privilege for dear life because they see a glass ceiling. Like, people are dissatisfied. That's why people on both sides are arguing and whatnot. It's just, there are a lot of politicians that are too busy arguing than actually solving problems. And the sad part is, both sides can agree with that. Sad part is, both sides. The fact that we have 2 sides as a country, that we're not talking openly, that we're accusing and we're putting labels on other people, which I spoke about colloquialisms in the previous episode. In fact, I don't know if it aired. I think that was the one that had that. So keep in mind, colloquialism, it's coming up if it's not on YouTube. But no, it's the basis of any sort of discrimination and bias. And it basically, when we give something a word, the left or the right, black or the white, my religion, your religion, you're this, you're that, it becomes a lot easier to cement stereotypes that would otherwise disenfranchise somebody from proving you wrong, proving your assumption wrong. You feel validated because now it's a rule when it's colloquial, when it is an understood term and defined term. That's the big problem, is we're not talking to each other, we're not communicating, and we're not having that open discourse and dialogue. Being online is helping us be brave and antagonize other people to engage in projected schadenfreude to make the other person feel worse so that we can feel better by proxy, and we can do it all online and anonymously. People have been dealing with that. Some people are facing eviction. That will depress anybody. I've been through that. Some people are running into family problems. Been through that too. And now they have, there was a thing back in the, back about 5 to 10 years ago, that there was a study showing, wow, there are so many millennials going back to live with their parents. Partly because the parents didn't really teach them. They allowed the TV to teach them, and then the education system didn't teach us any of the adult skills we needed. But I digress. So they're living with their parents. I know people personally that have. And there's this huge boom in this glass ceiling for my generation. And then you've got this eviction thing going on where people are getting kicked out. So they're not feeling fulfilled living with parents. They're getting kicked out in other situations and having to go back to living with parents. During COVID, by the way. And then you've got people that just refuse to give up polarization. Refuse it. But that's also spurred on by this thing called commentators. Why? Because they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on everywhere. These commentators, they make their money by you watching their videos. How do they get you to watch their videos? They give you inflammatory things that'll make you, they'll basically validate what you think. Let that sink in for a second. Commentators basically give people permission and validation for what they think. But commentators rely on the trends that people are already talking about. They just speak it out loud and give it some semblance of authority. Think of it like a personality colloquialism. I guarantee my branding people just kind of smiled at that one. And then so did everybody else that calls themselves a newscaster or a reporter. I know I'm getting under a few people's skin, and that's a good thing. The more people get under your skin, the more uncomfortable you feel, the more you realize something is wrong. But then you've got other people that they'll be projecting all the time. Like, you can see through their actions, and you can call them not nice people. You could call them mean people, angry people. Well, for the longest time, I was in a state of I wish you would. And that's not a healthy place to be, because it's prolonged cortisol response and prolonged adrenal secretions from your, adrenaline. It's a constant fight or flight engagement, and that takes a huge toll on your body. But when people have to suppress their depression, all of a sudden, you have to suppress it to fit in with everybody else in society, right? So when people have to suppress their depression, all of a sudden, they have to get it out somehow. Because we are emotional creatures as much as we are social creatures. I'm going to say that again. We are emotional creatures as much as we are social. Emotions, they're internal. Social, external. Social deals with other people's emotions and interactions and interpretations. Emotional deals with our own. So we've got a state of depression basically around the world, with all these wars and all these stressors and all these threats and all of these blah 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 blah. I haven't felt it. And then you got the other side. Oh my God, I just lost somebody I loved. And then we've got this flagrant disregard, because when we see somebody else disenfranchised, there's a certain percentage of the U.S. population that's depressed and gets a second of feeling good. I think that's the reason why, I'm not going to say the name on open air, but there's a TV show where a person was doing really dumb stuff, really hurtful, harmful stuff, and it's known as Jack A. I'll let you fill in the blank. And Johnny Knoxville, I believe. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville or something like that. That whole thing where we enjoyed watching Married with Children, Johnny Knoxville, and all that good stuff. And we enjoyed seeing people in pain and face challenges recklessly, emotionally. I mean, it's one of those where depression is pretty much everywhere. We all know somebody suffering from depression right now because of how the world has turned around. That's why people are so rebelling against it. They're falling into depression and they're like, no, don't force me into my house, don't, and this and the other, but then they don't want to give up their privileges. And so they don't want to wear masks and they don't want to be forced to vaccinate. And then you got the commentators biking people up because they're already away from mothers and they're not going through physical touch. Physical touch releases oxytocin. Keep a pin in that one. But you got these commentators basically playing off of people's emotions, paranoias, and fears in this genuinely, we're a cushy country, and we're a lot less cushy lately. But let's talk about oxytocin. Us being apart from each other for a year, there's a reason people want to give hugs. Okay, when you give somebody a hug, actual compassionate hugs, not just like, hello, sir, let me shake your hand. and that was like I don't know, maybe like watches jingling, but you were you're watching left hand, not your right. Yeah, blah blah blah. So people want to hug, people want to kiss, people want to hold hands, they want to cuddle. They want to be close to each other and physically touch, because why? It releases oxytocin. Now, I could tell you after 2 years and being able to can't count the number of hugs and handshakes on both my fingers and toes, that when somebody walked up behind me, her name was Jennifer, and she was just, taking pity on a kid that was really awkward, and I was. Gave me a hug from behind, and this huge rush just went through my entire body. That was oxytocin. It's kind of like a nice, you know how you do those 5-hour energies and it says, oh, you might experience a niacin flush. Like that, only like 10 times better, right? And that's because I have been deprived of it for so long, from not hugging and not cuddling and all that good stuff. And what it does is it changes your mental state to one of isolation, if you will. We are social creatures, and that can cause depression. That can reinforce depression, not touching people, not having that oxytocin release that we get used to. I mean, that's why people after prolonged breakups can go into a depression. Or after a breakup, depression. That's part of it. There's a reason we want to be close. There's a reason a lot of people want to be in relationships. And having the absence of that oxytocin release, and with all of the cortisol that's being released, with all of these stressors that say, oh, you should be afraid. Just watching videos online is triggering our fight or flight reflex all the time. So cortisol up, dopamine down, oxytocin absent for what, a year for some people? Longer? That is the catch. And then you've got these conspiracy theorists profiteering off of the fact that they want to push, and some of them want to push anti-vaccinations, and other ones want to make fun of the people that want to anti-vax, and then you've got the people that want to anti-vax that are resentful of the blah, 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 blah. It's tit for tat. It's like high school. And the commentators love it because they make money from the clicks and the advertisements. True story. And then people donate to them. So this is the environment that we're living in that very much reinforces, presently, depression. Now, how can depression manifest itself? A lot of ways. A lot of ways. Let's say you really, really, really like your privilege, but you have the money to afford it. You might be engaged more in narcissism or nihilism. Nihilism? But narcissism for sure. You might be engaged more in that. You might be more compassionate. You might be the type of person trying to help somebody out, or emptying out your pocket to help a homeless person. You could be that person too. You could be the person going to your neighbors and helping them out, or asking, how can I help you? Or even just, bringing them food here and there, like a home-cooked meal that maybe they haven't had, something like that, Just doing nice things. There are people out there like that. But we're also distanced. People like that usually hug, don't they? I know a few people like that, and they hug all the time. Like, if you know them and they know you, yeah, they're going to hug you. Point blank and simple. It's going to happen. And they're just really, really nice people, and you can feel their hug. You know what I'm saying? You can feel the smile through the hug. And that feeling, it partly is oxytocin. So let's take a step back. So when a person is isolated, like we were for almost a year, not only is there depression, but there's always a seeking of gratification. Excuse the pups you might hear in the background. Kennel training is on. And I live in the country, so. But yeah, we've kind of been trained. That's a good segue. Thanks, pup. Yeah, her name is Nyla. Naya. I don't know her name. What's it? Fresh pups. And I just call them cutie booties because they have their mother's trait, which is her tail would wag so much when she saw you that her legs would literally lift off the ground, lift off the ground, lift off the ground, and she would never just stop that unless she was running after a ball. Her pups are the same way. So, yeah, you can hear them in the background, kind of. I'm just seeing if they're gonna go off. I think they're feeding off each other. Oh, there we go. Just lost my train of thought, huh? So in a way, over time, we have been trained in the past year, 2 years, to kind of be reactive based on our environments. Like, commentators are definitely training us to be reactive. And then we've got politicians that some are sound-minded and some are just some I am surprised that they are in office because of the lack of empathy. They're more focused on helping themselves and their talking point than they are in serving the best interests of their constituents. And we have people that are ignoring scientists. So, for example, there was more than one study, or not study, but report on hospital beds running out because people who were anti-vaxxers were getting COVID, being thrown in the hospital, and people that need help don't have beds. And that leaves the innocent, the ones who didn't get to make the choice of whether to vaccinate or not, to die. That's just the cold, hard truth of it. And the cold, hard truth is depressing. Losing a loved one is depressing. Having a long-term effect from COVID exposure is depressing. And some people do have breathing challenges. This is a unique time. And it makes sense to be depressed. So now that I've talked about depression and gotten you guys all depressed and all that good stuff, let me take a sip of coffee before I jump into this one because I'm going to lighten your mood. And I cut it off right there and took a sip of coffee right there because I mean that. See, depression is temporary. Depression is a reaction. At least environmental depression is a reaction. If you have long-term depression because of a chemical imbalance, that's one thing. But the psychological community, finally, is catching up, finally, to the fact that there is depression and PTSD that is environmentally created. Imagine that. Imagine that with people that, babies raising babies, a generation being raised by the television while their parents were constantly working to fulfill the promises of the baby boomer generation. Working that 9 to 5 and then, Enron and all that other good stuff and MLMs and so on. They had their own series of depression. And then before that, the generation before that was the Great Depression. In fact, I've heard a few stories of that. In fact, I wish my great-grandmother was still alive and I was smart enough at the age of 8 to ask her about it. Because she lived through it. True story. And now, you've got my generation, which in a lot of cases are babies raising babies. Because some of us got pregnant at 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. We were going into relationships during a generation that their parents didn't want to have the talk, and that's why it was on the actual television. Have the talk with your kids. It was a whole campaign. We've made a lot of mistakes as a country, but we've recovered from them. We're going to recover from COVID. We're going to recover from this current political environment. Hopefully we'll recover from commentators, but we'll recover. And that's the awesome thing about it, is when faced with adversity, every movie had it right. We Well, I don't want to sound misogynistic on this one. And you know what? It doesn't even bother me to recognize that. Why? Because it's right. We don't need to, you know, like, we own up. Collectively. Americans own up. Every single time. It may take some time, but we own up. At least that's who we used to be, and that's who we can still be. It's our choice to recognize our part in every situation, and then to decide what to do about that knowledge. That's basically the basics of therapy, is to question the other person to help them discover their part in the situation, or help them recognize and accept their part in the situation, what the situation is, and then to accept it is what it is. What's next? And I'm looking forward to what's next after this hard time. Because every time we have to come over something big, we innovate, we fix problems, we solve things, we grow, we come together. Right now is a hard time because we just went through a hard time and we're still in a hard time, all right? But the sun is coming around the corner, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what we can do as a country, as a world, but as a country. Because I am American first. You don't sign up for the military unless you are a patriot, unless you want college, or unless you're avoiding prison. Listen, you don't sign up for... I didn't sign up. Okay, there we go. I signed up because I'm a patriot, the same way that I served the Victory for Veterans Alliance, vva-usa.org if you want to learn more about what we do. Why? Because this isn't an advertisement. We don't want your money. We don't need it. We're going to be self-sustaining. We spent 2,000 hours on our business plan to help address the mental needs as well as the physical needs of female veterans. The most difficult and diverse group of military homeless veterans that you have out there. That's why it's still an issue, is, it's very difficult to solve because of how many angles the trauma comes from. And trauma causes depression too. And again, thank God the psychological community is jumping on. And I don't say that from a religious standpoint, I'm just saying as a figure of speech. Forgive me on that one if you will. But still though, it's awesome to see the community finally recognizing that, wow, some PTSD and depression is situationally created. And COVID helped do that. That's one innovation. Okay? We're moving forward on that front. And then we're addressing behavior modification. It's called ABA. Look it up on Google. But ABA is basically it is behavior modification for neurodivergent people. What that means is neurodivergent is Asperger's, ADHD, or autism. And it's behavior modification, meaning you shouldn't accept the person for how they are. You need to change their behavior, and not without any further study, I guess. I don't know. It's been going on for a while, and there are still kids literally tied to electric machines that are being zapped for misbehaving and not taking commands with autism. I forget the name of the institution that's still operating like this. And they've starved kids. They've done all sorts of horrific things, and it's been made legal. Seriously, I think it's in Connecticut. It's CDC. No. It's C something C. You can look it up. Look up Google autism torture. I'm sure you'll find it. But changing people's behavior, that's kind of what commentators are trying to do from an NLP standpoint, neuro-linguistic programming. Like, that's their goal, is to inflame the flames that people already have. That's their goal. That's how they make money. That's how they literally put a roof over their head and pay their car payment and all of that. They pay it through advertising and your clicks. And some of them are honest. A lot of them are playing to the flame that's already existing. So they're basically pouring gas on a flame war. That's a good way to put it, yeah. Okay, we're sticking with that. But that's where we are. That's where we are as a society. Is you've got profiteers, and then you've got everyone else just trying to get by and trying to be happy and trying to innovate. The same way that we saw McDonald's come up with all of those benefit packages. Oh, that's what I was getting at before. Sorry, autistic. I do jump around sometimes. I apologize, but I do tie it back together because everything I'm talking about is around a central subject. It's called rabbit holing. Basically, Alice in Wonderland dived down the rabbit hole. She saw a few different memories. You grab one of those and you end up falling right through it. And everything I'm talking about is off the cuff, off the dome. And that requires study, which is why I've been absent. But look at McDonald's and Arby's and all of that. Full benefits and $15 an hour. Please come make us more money. And workers are even still saying, no, we want better in life. And some have started businesses, and some of them have innovated into consultancies. I know a few people that have done that. I've seen a few people like just creating genuine good content to help people, therapeutic content, make money off of it and support themselves. And one of them just plays Super Mario Maker. His name is Realcar. If you want to check him out on YouTube, I find his content his content is fun to watch, but it's just really impressive. Seriously, Ryukhar, Realcar. And I mean, he's fun to watch for me, but I'm also a video gamer for life. And some of the things they do in Mario Maker is just absolutely impressive to me. And I was a professional video game tester. Look up State of Decay 2 and Crackdown 3. You'll find me in the credits under Experienced Game Tester. So I really respect video games in the industry, and I'm still an aficionado. And I love that content with Realcar, but we all need our little outlets in this depressing time. And the reason I bring him up is I watched him go from working a job to doing that full time to getting engaged to somebody else who's also a YouTube content creator and all of that. I think he helped launch her channel a little bit further. And I still follow her too. But I mean, yeah, people are innovating, they're networking, they're collaborating with each other. They are following their dreams because we just had the last year to pursue them. Finally! Now I'm speaking for the millennials out there. Ish. Millennials, Gen X, and for that matter. But yeah, we're all grown-ups at this point. And now we have the chance to really, a lot of us have the chance to step away from the 9-to-5 2-job grind that I was mentioning at the beginning of this episode and step into self-actualization according to Maslow's hierarchy. Oh my gosh. In fact, I think he created that when he wasn't actually, he was pursuing a different side project in, I think, marketing or something like that. And he wasn't actually a doctor at the time when he created Maslow's hierarchy, which we still teach today. It's awesome. I love psychology. And that's kind of why I'm doing the show. I'm doing things too in the background, and I just wrote a book and all of that because I had time. And I was still working for the state, during COVID and everything, but I was still pursuing my passions because now I have the opportunity to. And a lot of people are finding that they're having the opportunities to pursue passions, to pursue innovations. I've got an invention that I'm pushing right now too. And I know other people, like my buddy, he wants to open up a food cart, but he's got a legit business plan and a solid business concept. Like, I'm genuinely impressed, and that doesn't happen every day. And yeah, I mean, I'm seeing people come out the woodworks, and I'm just looking forward to these future innovations to solve global warming, to solve the water crises, and also, and I'm looking forward to the uniting of community, because whenever there's struggle, we unite. The only thing that stopped us from uniting before is internal division. So once we address this political situation and the vaccine situation, I think that we can come together and really, really innovate to fix things to where farmers, the lifeblood of America, don't have to worry about their crops burning up while they're growing. We don't have to worry about potential food shortages in the future. I'm working on an innovation with the VVA that could also be applied to address there's a reason that we're going to be so sustainable that we won't need any of your money. But we don't have to be the only ones doing it. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different innovations towards produce, towards I was going to say merchandise. Because, honey and jam. Oh my gosh, jam. We're about to make some plum jam that's like, oh my god, from the plum trees outside. But we're just doing it for ourselves. We don't have an orchard, but I thought about merchandise. what hit my head, my autistic mind, is we also, I think, are going to be moving away from a capitalistic society in the sense of where we celebrate materialism so much. Because we're kind of a narcissistic society. Narcissism is where you value yourself over others and you value material things over compassion, basically. Yeah, I know that's long story short, but at the same time, I guarantee you there are psychologists like, that whole like sideways say, and then you nod your head. Okay, okay, yeah. That's kind of what they just did. I'm pretty dang sure. So, where we're sitting at is we've got a society that has the chance to unite, that has the chance to correct a lot of problems. And we've got minds bright enough that we can solve the problems multilaterally in a unified position. What does that mean? We can solve a whole bunch of problems through centralized solutions. And that's what companies do. Okay, HP, they don't just sell computers, they don't just sell mice, they don't just sell printers, they don't just sell modems and so on and so forth, they diversified. And we're going to see a lot of companies diversifying too. Smaller companies. Companies that are coming back, or companies that were born of COVID. So we can see the adversity for what it is. We can see the challenges and the losses for what they are. But we can also choose to see the light at the end of the tunnel that is endemic to American culture. Like, nowadays, I'll buy 1 or 2 lattes per week, but I got coffee. And granted, the stuff I'm drinking right now is Ethiopian Gucci Kircha, right? But I'm just as happy, doing the Folgers drip, because the best part of waking up, right? But one thing we're also noticing too, and I want to address this, because this directly applies to depression. Nutrition and taking care of yourself. I mentioned my Total Gym a little bit earlier. I stick by that machine. And not just because Chuck Norris, got bit by a snake one day and then 3 days later the snake died. Not just because Chuck Norris. But I actually do have had the Chuck Norris training video. Not joking, for the Total Gym. Yes, I'm not proud of that. But, still Chuck Norris. Come on. Sorry, I really, really love 80s and 90s movies. I really do. But we have the chance to move forward as a society. And we also got to take care of ourselves. Those of you watching online, you might notice that I'm looking a little bit better than I have in previous episodes. You might be noticing that my hair is a little bit better. And everything's clean shaven and all of that. You got to take care of yourself. Remember to feed yourself right, because when you eat the wrong foods, it has been proven, scientifically proven multiple times over, that like fast food increases the potential for depression, because we need to have nutritious food in our bodies. We need to take care of our bodies. And yeah, depression can cause people to neglect themselves, and please, please, please don't self-punish. I've been through that cycle. It's very vicious. It really is. And there's no need to self-punish, because another person's feelings about you has nothing to do with you, unless you were the cause of theirs. But that's beside the point, because right now we are in a global pandemic. We have been in an economic challenge. We've been through all sorts of challenges, and what I'm finding is the people that are happiest coming out of this are the people that are minimalists. Meaning, like again, the fact that I have maybe 1, maybe 2 lattes per week, and that's rare nowadays for the past month. I don't eat as much sugar. I'm eating a lot more healthy things, and they're actually starting to taste better again. But eating healthy and taking care of yourself matters. It makes a huge difference on how your emotions are going to come out to other people. Because if your body's running on the cheapest gas you can buy, how long do you think it's going to be before your body starts gumming up and acting up and making noises? Hopefully not in the elevator, but life. But how long do you think it's going to be? Our lifestyles are going to catch up with us, and we've got excess cortisol, we've got minimized dopamine, we've got trolls left and right trying to grief people, and ultimately we've got people that profit off of sensationalism. They're profiting off of riding the flames and pouring gas on the flames at the expense of human life. I personally find that deplorable. But then again, I'm a humanitarian at heart. And I'm a public servant at heart. It's partly why at one point I was an associate pastor. But that's the thing, is people are starting to pursue their passions. My passion is to help people. It's why online I'm pursuing autism advocacy. Because I see so many of my kind hurt. Like, I don't know an autist that isn't depressed on some level. I don't know a single one. I've never met one. I've never seen one online. We've all had a hard life. And my job, well, what I see as my job, is to do whatever I can to make other people's lives better. And I'm starting with autism at the moment. And I'm still the director of the VVA. But I have the opportunity to pursue my passion, to self-actualize according to Maslow, right? You guys have that same opportunity. Like, seriously, we have that opportunity right now. We are at the cusp of how the next 10 years are going to go. Are they going to go good? Are they going to go bad? What's our involvement? Like, what is our part to play in it? And do we accept our part to play in it? Even if it's just to vote and maybe get vaccinated or wear a mask. Or socially distance for a little bit more. Or go online and play with your friend from a distance that you can't see so that you guys can just talk and play and enjoy each other's company as much as humanly possible. And maybe during that playtime it can be an educational moment for the kids who have been stuck playing online with parents that are either working or stressed out, and maybe it's a time to rebuild with them. Like, there's so many opportunities, and people are looking at the negative side of things, but we've got opportunities right now. We've got the opportunity to become better people, a better country, more united. We've got that opportunity. We've got the opportunity to innovate. Some of us have time to really, really focus on things that we've been wanting to do for years and haven't. Either through fear of finances or fear of expulsion, fear of eviction, fear of this, fear of that, and we don't need to fear anymore. We could pursue our passions. And you know what's funny? Follow me on this correlation, because I am autistic, and correlations, they kind of resonate with me. And I've studied a lot. I really, really like to study. But that's kind of my guilty pleasure right there. So, in all of this studying, I see the potential to help. And even in... Here we go. I got this. Well, if somebody else actually got it, a lot of people got it first. You know how pretty much every religion says to be happy with what you have? I've been saying for at least a decade that wealthy people are going to have the hardest time self-actualizing because of the lack of stress, the lack of challenge. The stress they create for themselves, and often it's in a completely different culture of narcissism and privilege. When some people at the bottom see that, they want that. You really shouldn't. I know a lot of those folks. I used to work for them. I used to subcontract for them. I haven't known too many that were happy, and the ones that were, they just lived a simple, minimal life. Like, they had what they wanted, but they knew when to say, I have everything I want. And then they leave the rest for their kids, and they teach their kids, and they take the time for their kids instead of trying to always go out and enjoy. And the base correlation I've seen from them and from poor people at the end of life, meaning at the end of your life, you've got nothing else to lose. And that's the best time to gather information if you want to learn from somebody. It really is. I promise you. And it's a great time to show compassion to somebody that might be on their way. Whether it's a way to another journey or their way out. I mean, I guess that believes on your beliefs and theirs. But it's a great time to show compassion. And sometimes that compassion is just listening to stories. You can hear some pretty cool stories. And, I mean, there are some braggadocious moments where it's just like, okay, respect. Like, you totally deserve to brag about that. Like, okay, well done. Well done. But at the end of the conversations, it always boils down to, I don't care about what I've accumulated. I care about the relationships I made and built and refined. I care about the people in my life and the people I impacted. That's the lasting difference. Like seriously, the Great Wall of China it started off with a single brick, and then the next was laid, next was laid, next was laid. Then a whole bunch of people came together and they built something absolutely incredible that can be seen from space. That's still lasting today. Despite everything going on in the environment, despite pretty much everything, it's still standing. It took a lot of people. Well, I kind of don't want to mention the pyramids because, yeah, it took a lot of people, but they didn't exactly work, you know. Yeah, you get what I'm saying? Like in some places, yeah, but in the Egypt realm where we all know it, like, yeah, that was kind of forced labor. Well, not kind of. So I don't want to celebrate that, but, and same thing with the Mayans, Aztecs, yeah, kind of the same. Kind of. All right, we're not going to dive into that, but huge things can be built, and it all starts with a single stone. And at the end of life, doesn't matter if you're rich, it doesn't matter if you're poor, everybody talks about the material things not mattering and relationships mattering. And this is our time to shine right now. Because we're all anxious to come back together, we're all anxious to communicate, and we all have the ability to extend compassion to another person. This is an awesome time. We have the chance to innovate to benefit other people. We have the chance to really connect online because everybody's going online. Build a relationship, build rapport, do the networking thing. Like, we've got so much potential right now as a country. And this whole depression only lasts for as long as you accept that you're depressed. If you choose to look at the bright side of life, which is what I have been doing, you can come out of it. I mean, that's in every textbook I have ever read, as far as, just accepting your part, your role, and then accepting, okay, what can I do next? What can I do next? And am I going to do it? And then doing it. Okay, basis for therapy. I've been doing the same thing. To share a personal story, I've spent the last year, well, almost the last 8 months, fighting off a severe depression, but I've spent the last 3 years in a toxic situation. I suffer from PTSD, and it's environmentally induced, and I'm getting over it. I'm almost entirely over it. But it took a long road to get here of just facing hard memories, facing hard realities, hard truths, and accepting my part even when it wasn't the greatest. That's the first step. The first step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America has a huge depression issue, and depression comes in every shape and size you can imagine. From getting angry to externalizing to internalizing and shutting down, which is very common for us autists, or people that are neurodivergent and on the spectrum. There's a lot going on. And how we choose to interpret that is up to us and our character. Last I checked, America still had some character to it. We still had a sense of community, And I think we can get back to that. I think we can build back to our sense of community and really just appreciate one another, appreciate our role, appreciate what we have, without having to always try to impress other people, without having to always try to buy more, get more. Ooh, I want this. And asking to ourselves, do I need this? And then cutting off the things that you don't need or that might be destructive or harmful. Even if it means, stepping away from a few relationships that aren't beneficial. I think right now America needs to heal. We've been through a depression, right? So, in fact, I think the history books are going to call this the Second Great Depression and pandemic. But we're making it through, aren't we? And what we choose to do in the future is entirely up to us. Right now, we're in flux, politically, economically, all of that. And there's potential. And our job is to recognize, okay, what part do our emotions and actions play in this? And to what point are we listening to other people instead of ourselves and our own intuition and our own ethics and morals? So I wish you all a safe journey, and I hope you get vaccinated or are vaccinated, and I hope you stay safe out there. Seriously. Myself, I'm going to be pursuing my dream while I'm pursuing my dream from another angle, because all I want to do is help people. That's literally built into me, and thank my lucky stars for my grams signing up to be a literal nun. So anyway, you guys stay safe out there. You too.